Hey everybody, I'm trying to be as cool as Dan, but it will never work. My name is Nicholas. I'm one of co-founders of Zeng8 Global here with Sam, and we are joined here today with by Dr. Lagat, a tremendous man that I met on a trip to Kenya, about 2 months ago almost, for the East African Specialty Tea Expo. It was a fantastic event. I was invited to speak at, and had the good timing, lucky timing, and great privilege to meet Dr. Lagat. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, so Dr. Lagat's joining us because I gave this presentation on market access for the tea producers from the region that joined the expo, and again, very lucky timing that my presentation was delayed by 1 hour, and Dr. Lagat's arrival was anticipated by a couple hours, and so he had the opportunity to hear me speak, and we had a good conversation afterwards, and it was just, he is the get this correct, he is the Minister of Agriculture for Nandi County. It's one of the counties in Kenya, and Nandi County, maybe I should ask more from Dr. Lagat. There's a lot of agricultural products that come out of Nandi County, and maybe you can tell us more instead of me.
Okay. You want me to go now?
Yes, please tell us. Tell us a little bit about the products that come from Nandi County, if you don't mind.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nicholas, and it's a pleasure being here. And thank you for hosting me today in this podcast. As you've heard, my role at the county government of Nandi is the Minister for Agriculture, which is called County Executive Committee member, which is an appointive position by the county governor. We have got 47 counties in Kenya, one state, one government, but 47 county governments. So we have two tier levels of governments here, the devolved governments and the national government. And in each devolved unit, it has got different sectors, which include agriculture, where I am the head of the same sector. But I also have a role at the national level where we have a caucus under the Council of Governors. We have a caucus of ministers of agriculture, and I am the chair of that caucus. And so I play a critical role, especially in facilitating the sector working groups for the sector in the at the national legislations, regulations that supports the agriculture sector, both at the national level and at the county level. So I play a critical role. But formerly, I was a senior lecturer at Moi University in Kenya, which is located in the neighboring county called Uasin Gishu. It is one of the big universities in Kenya. We have about 3 or 4 universities that were probably 40 years old, and I was a senior lecturer there as an agriculture economist. I have also been a consultant for International Food Policy and Research Institute in Washington, D.C. So I have a bit of experience in the U.S., and I did my postdoc in Italy. That's why I got excited with Nicholas, because he's staying closer to where I was at the University of Siena. So I was there for my postdoc for 1 year. And then I went to the US to Cornell University for 6 months on my postdoc on a project I was dealing with. Then later on, while at the university, I used to consult for a number of organizations in Washington, D.C., and also in some parts of Africa. I've worked in Nigeria, in Senegal, in Ghana, in South Africa, and in Egypt, and a number of countries in Africa. So I've been a consultant at the global stage, but then I decided to go and work with the local communities because I wanted to have a first-hand experience. My father is a tea farmer, and I grew up in the tea estates, where he was actually one of the drivers in the tea estates of the tractors that take the tea from the farms to the factory. So we have a tea farm, also a very small tea farm. My father is a tea farm, the smallholder tea farm actually. That's about 1 acre only. But that was enough to take me to the university and to the high school. So together with my siblings. So I've grown up in the tea estates and also among the smallholder tea farmers. And that's why I wanted to go back and serve a little bit at the county government level. It wasn't my level at the university, but I wanted to really gain a lot of experience working with farmers. And my experience working there, this is now my 7th year. I wanted to work there for 5 years, but the governor I was working with decided to retain me for the second term. So I hope it was due to my performance. And working with the rural communities in Africa and generally in Kenya is a very exciting thing to do. And Nicholas, I know you saw the kind of experience we have there, the future of tea, the future of even coffee, and generally of smallholder production. It holds a lot of potential for us, especially if we are moving into organically produced products, and even looking at issues of global priority issues like inclusion, if you want to consider things like pollution and all that. I think smallholder bears a lot of hope for us to build adaptability among those communities and reduce emissions and all that. So in the county of Nandi, we have it is a county that prides itself as being one of the biggest tea producers in Kenya, but also we are gaining now a lot in coffee. We are expanding largely on coffee. So the next frontier value chain that we are supporting is coffee. Tea is developed. I have over 30 tea factories in Kenya, in Nandi alone. So it's one of the biggest producers of coffee after Kericho and some counties in the central Kenya. So we are one of the biggest in the east after Kericho. Thank you.
Is there also sugarcane production in Nandi County as well? I mean,
yes,
there are
yes,
a lot of other
yes,
products
yes,
as well,
yes.
no?
Actually, our key value chain is tea, followed by we have maize also, but the key value chain, of course, other than the tea, is dairy. So that's why I have built one of the biggest dairy processing plant in Nandi. That is my project, supported by the World Bank. So we have dairy, we have tea, we have coffee, we have sugarcane, we have avocado, one of the coming up now. Yeah. In fact, my cooperative, the farmer cooperative, received their license to export and to Netherlands from smallholder farmers.
No, I was struck by, here in Italy, you have olive trees everywhere, even as decoration. And just outside of the tents for the expo, there was this giant avocado tree, and it just struck me as amazing.
Yes.
Here in Italy, they try to make a little avocado tree grow, and they're so happy when but this was enormous, and the fruit was just falling off of it. It's such a rich, amazing place. It's true.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that background. I mean, really, I'm really happy you shared your journey, and I think you gave everybody a really good idea of that intersection between agriculture, your upbringing, your father's background as a tea farmer, and how you came into economics. That's fantastic. Thanks.
So, Dr. Lagat, I just wanted to dive a little bit more into your background, if that's all right, before we jump into the meaty bits of the podcast. But I also come from an economics background, so mainly focused on labor markets, and and sort of education and marriage markets, like initially when I was writing my thesis. So a little bit different, and I've sort of found my way into commodities and into finance and insurance space. But I'm just curious from your end, you mentioned a little bit around your motivations around studying economics and finding your way into the role that you're currently in. But can you just walk us through a little bit behind that in a bit more detail, and yeah, some of the work that you were focusing on from a research point of view, and then ultimately how it's spilling over to support the smallholders and the cooperatives and the various infrastructure partners you have in your county and more broadly Kenya as well. I'd love to just understand a bit of that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sam. And it's one of the things that makes me reflect always when I'm asked about that. My key motivation, actually, I remember when I was admitted at the university, I was doing very well in mathematics, but then I had a passion for agriculture. Way before, when I was in primary school, I used to do small kind of vegetable gardens. Even when I was in high school, we used to have a transitional period of around 1 year, about 1.5 years before you proceed to high school. And I did a lot of agriculture during that time. I used to plant the traditional vegetables, and I would take them to the market all the way to my current city from my home city, and waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and transporting those vegetables. When the markets open in the morning at 6 o'clock, you're able to sell them at a good profit margin. By the time I was going to the university, I was already loaded with some pocket money. Then it was a lot to my standard at that time. So really, I've been passionate about this agriculture, and I think much of really what drives me is transformation. You know, I do a lot of imagination on what can be done, and that's really struck my mind, because it's one of the things I've been wanting to really see as a solution: connect the producer to the consumer. So really, if you look at the kind of situation that these smallholder farmers operate in, they may look like they are poor, but to some extent, they are not very poor. I want to believe that sometimes they are made poor when you want to make them to think like whatever they produce in the farm is not worthwhile, yet it's highly valuable. The only missing link is connection to the market. So my passion and actually drive to really work with communities is how to connect them to the market. When I finished my first degree and I moved to for my graduate studies, I actually was seconded into one of the teams that was developing the East African curriculum for the universities on value chain development, supported by the GIZ Development Organization. So, and that's how I really got to really develop a lot of understanding about how we could support these farmers to connect not only to the local and national markets, but even to the global markets. So if you come, my slogan, working with farmers, I tell them about something called dollar mashinani. So when you talk of dollar mashinani, is we want them to sell their products at a dollar, not at a shilling. Because, you know, when you are selling with a dollar, the shilling is highly volatile, but the dollar is for the export market. So that's what drove me to really go and work with communities, because I could support them to connect to the market, not only the local markets, but even the international markets. That's why one of my areas of research is key. I mean, is about development and how you can also create inclusion in value chain development. That includes women, youth, and even those people living with disabilities. How can they be part of the value chain development? I also consider even workers, farm workers. How can they enjoy and also get a fair share of the value in the value chain development? So that's the kind of passion I have in the sector. I have also delved a bit deeper into the what we call global value chains. So you should be understanding that. And the idea is that how can you really identify some of the opportunities for the African smallholder farmers to fit within the global value chain, so that we are not just thinking about big acts. The big acts might not be able to some of the global goals that we are targeting, but the people who can easily attain are these smallholder farmers. That's my strongest feeling. So the question is always, how will you identify the opportunities in the global value chains that you're looking at, be it if it's in the apparel value chain, if it's in the food value chains, if it's in the drinks, the soft drinks, and whichever kind of value chain you're looking at. How can the smallholder farmers participate in the global value chain? Because if you look at it keenly, the African smallholder farmers have a little share. Even most of the African economies have very little participation in the global value chains generally, because we are at the primary level, producing the primary commodities, tech industry, and all that. Yet we have huge potential. If you come to the rural villages in Africa, we now have even graduates in ICT, guys who have done computer science. These are people who they just need internet connectivity, and they can do for you even programming. So you don't need to transport them to the big cities where they spend a lot of money. They have to burn a lot of electricity and fuel and all that. No, they can operate from the village. They get, so long as they have that access to the fast internet. And in Kenya now we have, even in Nandi, we have a largely high access to high-speed internet. So it's still possible to tap into this potential that these young people have, and even the rural communities have.
Yeah, that's excellent. And it's, in preparation for this podcast, our team spent a fair bit of time listening to the clips, when you're asking Nicholas the questions at the event, but also reading through your bios and some of the work you've done. And I think the thing that's obvious, not only just from the research that we're doing before the podcast, but from what you've said, is one of the things that really brought founding team members together, and also brought a team, why do they work, at Thengate, is this idea around opportunity inclusion. It's something I got brought up with as well. And in the past, when I got brought up with my family members, they had sort of grown up in different, I guess, parts of society, I guess. And so it was through that opportunity inclusion that they were able to make a better living for themselves and improve their livelihoods. And we see that. And I think the main thing as well that we've noticed with just not even just talking about smallholders in general is that these value chains are so there's a big lack of resilience around value chains all around the world, and it's now more important than ever that you begin building really, really solid relationships, whether that's direct, maybe there's some intermediaries here and there when required, but there's a huge potential for just infrastructure to just connect and provide the plumbing. I always think of it as like provide the plumbing so that the things can flow from one place to another, whether that's in a domestic market or a international market, which is sort of what you were suggesting, and vice versa as well, like the ability for Kenya as a market to be able to directly tap into other places as well to source commodities that and other types of goods and services where maybe it isn't a specialty or a focus within Kenya, to bring that into the country in an affordable way as well. So just based on what we've done in terms of our research around tea value chains, spice, honey value chains, the split in terms of where the money goes is shocking at times. And people have been able to extract a lot of value from these markets in not the right way. And I think having infrastructure in the right places, such as where your county is putting the money, enables the smallholders and the cooperatives as well, who play an important role, to have a new platform to be able to ensure that more value flows back to them, right? And at the end of the day, if more value flows back to these cooperatives and smallholders and the people as well who are providing the services to ensure this success. It means the communities benefit, and you get that that sort of recursive system of, you know, value flowing back in, more education, more skills, more value flowing back in, so forth and so forth. So it's yeah, it's a very aligned in terms of our mission, I think, in terms of what motivates me and why maybe not why I studied economics in the first place, but definitely how I use my education to sort of drive things forward. So that's very cool. But anyway, I might hand over to Nico because it's sort of a segue into one of the questions he wanted to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I remember you talking about Dollar Mashinani and how well the response was from everyone listening to you. This message that really resounds with them, and so much of what you've talked about, like Sam has suggested or was pointing out, that, you know, just allies philosophically with everything that we're trying to do, and how important it is to bring. I mean, we happen to be very fortunate. The stars crossed, and I was talking about using technology to bring more market access to smallholder farmers, and it just happened to be we were in the same room together when it happened. And so I just want to maybe, you know, follow up with you a little bit just on your thoughts here, that, you know, how do you see this technology that we're talking about, this emerging technology, impacting the supply chain and transparency and traceability in some of the projects that you've worked with, or the economies or the industries in your county?
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas. And I think I vividly remember what we discussed, and during COVID, I had a lot of time, and I worked with some organization that was trying to support some youth in Western Kenya, and I decided to consult for them. And I really wanted to look at the thinking and the farm. But I've had time to stay in Europe and in the US, and I know the trend in market and in generally in the whole Western economy in terms of the product movement, like the high value crops, products and all that. And if you look at the potential that you have in these smallholder economies, there's a saying in economics, and know some, you're an economist, they say small is beautiful. So sometimes you want to look at big things, but small things always come out beautiful. You can all agree the way China has been able to start in, a small way, but now they're probably moving things in a bigger way. The potential in Africa here is that there is still huge space for agricultural, arable agricultural land. We are yet to the irrigation technologies. We are yet to tap into the modern agronomic practices. So that tells you there is still room for learning. There is still room for support, for extension and all that. But for me, the consumer in the global market space, with emerging global challenges like pollution, the emissions, the issues of contamination in terms of products, the consumer is getting more sensitive day by day. They really want to know who produced this product. Was this person who produced the product compensated adequately, or you find a situation where you're eating an avocado where the person who was harvesting is actually struggling to make a living, paying so huge as a consumer, but the person who is benefiting from the value of the product is somebody at the middle who never toiled. So what I'm looking at is myself, the global consumer in future will be demanding to be connected to the producer. So traceability will be very key. Transparency in the market will be very key, because you'd want to know under which conditions were these products produced. So sometimes The other day, actually, there is one of the popular breakfast, probably you know it's not groundnut, actually so sometimes we eat, instead of eating bread, you can eat sweet potato, or cassava. So, but you notice that some people now want to know, did you grow this along the river banks? Is there some possible heavy metal contamination in this product? So this is in Africa, people are getting more sensitive here. How about in the West? I would imagine now the consumer is even getting much more sensitive. China, the same, so the Asian, the Middle East, and all that. Everybody's getting worried, the issues of rising cancer cases and all that. So for me, the connection between the global consumer and the local producers will need to be facilitated. And you need a clear, innovative product that can allow these two people to build trust between each other. So for me, the impact, how you are able to establish the trust between the consumer and the producer, so that the consumer is able to, with certainty, appreciate the quality, the value of the product they are consuming, and they can pay for the value. Similarly, the producer can predictably produce without being worried about risks of prices, the risks of fluctuation in terms of the market demand and supply, the market forces and all that. You'd want to guarantee that. So what it will do is that, one, you create predictability here, and then here there is some sort of trust that is bringing the two together. Ultimately, you're able to improve the welfare of the two, so that the interest of the consumer is to see that he gets a product. Same thing with the producer, is that they need to be able to produce for a market they can trust that the demand will be there even tomorrow. So that way, you're able to expand even the volumes, and you're able to still translate the trust that is existing in between the two levels of the market into a value for the two that is mutually beneficial to the two, producer and consumer.
Yeah, and I definitely agree, and I'm so curious as well, Dr. Lagat, what your views are on this, because when you small is good and big is good, when it makes sense, and the way I sort of model it in my head, what the micro looks like versus the macro is, from a time horizon point of view, I think there's a small to medium window where the demand from the consumer traceability side is going to be quite apparent, and whether that translates, I think it will translate, and I think some of the data suggests it will translate into pricing. Makes a lot of sense, which ultimately means there's a nice chunky window where, by being a first adopter of these technologies, you can get value flowing back into these communities and into the businesses and the cooperatives, and that's one of the sort of shorter models, I think, in my head. But the longer term, though, and this is where I'm curious, is I actually think traceability becomes a basic requirement when it comes to exports, when it comes to consumption. And I have a longer term view where the cost of traceability is going to go down so much over the long run. Everyone's going to be using it. It'll just be a common expectation of trade, right? When you talk about trading with trust, this is one of those sort of common expectations. And, that those premiums, I think, ultimately get closed. But the more important thing that gets replaced by that is the regulatory expectations of these technologies. And you mentioned some of this stuff before, as you're talking about emissions. In the case of the European markets, we talk a lot about deforestation regulation, and the 7 commodities right now are regulated for imports, and that starts January 20th, I think, 2025. And the Food and Drug Administration out of the United States also has a contamination focused traceability requirement from 2026. So there's a small window, I think, where value can be captured for the communities, but the bigger piece of it, which ensures the value stays, that flows back, is the regulatory requirements from these larger markets that maybe some of your producers in your county are exporting into or will be exporting into. And effectively, the way I think about it is the cost of not complying to traceability means a fine, and not complying means you lose access to the market. So it sort of ensures, incentivizes people to actually trade with the trust that you're talking about, trading with the transparency. But I'm just curious, like, what do you think about that? And what's the longer term impact on some of these policies that are coming up?
Thank you, Sam. And one thing for me is really the policy environment, of course, is quite volatile sometimes and unpredictable. But if really the technology you're talking about, for me, I am so passionate about how we can facilitate this in the value chain, how you can unlock any value chain, even in Africa or anywhere, especially dealing with smallholder farmers, is on traceability. If you can digitalize this process, if you can digitize it, I'm very sure nobody would want to interfere with probably punitive kind of regulatory instruments. What I know is that any facilitative market technology that is disruptive, of course, you might get some resistance from the big acts and so on for a start, because probably you are interfering with their markets and all that. But what I believe is this: ultimately, we should be looking at disrupting this with technology. It's inevitable. I believe so. Disruption is inevitable. Everything will outlive their time. When the need has risen to a level that it can even disrupt the political and policy environment, it will. So for me, it shouldn't be a deterrent. It should be something to fear about. The idea is to keep on innovating, to keep on getting the best, identifying the best opportunities to unlock these value chains, because it's about unlocking, disrupting, and probably removing some of the people who have, because if you look at it generally, why would, for example, I think I was in one of the German airports when I was probably traveling to UK or to US, I can't recall, some time back. And when I wanted a tea bag, they charged me €0.5 or something like that. And they gave me free milk. They gave me free water. They gave me free sugar. But when I wanted an additional bag of tea, they wanted me to pay another €2.5. So the question is that when I look at this, €2.5 is almost like, that is for almost a sachet should be having about how many grams? Is it?
It's about that's, like, even if you just look at the numbers alone, that's what Kenyan tea at the Mombasa auction trades for a kilo, right? So you're probably getting a few grams of tea when at the auction, right? This is not even what the smallholder producer makes, but the auction is around, it's around $2, I think, right now, or
so
around there.
Yeah, because that kilo costs for an average of around $2.5.
You should have just brought the 1 kilogram bag from Mombasa while you flew over. It would have been cheaper, I think.
Yes. But you can see now, at the end of the day, the person who's getting a raw deal here is the producer, right? So if ultimately we are able to bring closer the consumer and the producer, building the trust between them because of traceability, because of that transparency in the market, what happens eventually is that the value will be distributed in a fair manner. When the value is distributed fairly, there is that mutual benefit, and the value chain even grows better. And I think it will increase it will grow the welfare of everyone else, because it does not diminish your when you overpay or when you underpay at the consumer level, but the satisfaction you derive knowing that whatever I have paid for as a consumer translated also to the welfare of the producer. I think you should be happy also, and it should be something that we need to encourage.
I'm so struck by the idea that they were charging money for the tea, but giving the sugar and the milk away for free.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we know that the sugar producer, maybe not the one on the ground, right? Not the one doing the labor, but we know that the relationship between sugar consumption and milk consumption is so tight that the restaurant will just give it away for free because it's expected as confidence with the product. But the tea you must pay. And the tea is being charged at such a price of it's really and then if you I don't know if you had a chance to meet her, but one of the expert, one of the judges that came to taste the teas, Cheryl Johnson from an Australian tea master, she has this thing where she opens up the tea bags and she shows everybody what is inside the English breakfast tea bag, and it's it is the least expensive, the lowest quality product that they can possibly grab, and they just mix it all together. And this is what's being charged to you at the price of, what can that possibly be? Somewhere around maybe $50 a kilogram by the time you measure how much tea is actually inside just one tea bag, right? It's absurd. It's so striking. But
it's quite interesting. So I think for me it tells you of an opportunity. If you look at Alibaba was able to take advantage of this. You find that there were very good quality products from China, but nobody knew how to access them. So the only way to access them was through some of the big companies that would, they buy products at cheaper prices and sell to you at. But you see, when they provided that platform, today there are some things I needed for my farm. I do some small dairy farm, so I'm doing some selling. So I needed some rope, and I searched for it, and somebody was selling it in Nairobi, was selling it to me at around, I think 50. But when I looked at the, about $50. But when I check at the prices in Alibaba, it's only going for $10. So when I look at that huge variation in price, does not justify if I'm buying more volumes. I can easily just buy from Alibaba and I get the same product without. So for me, I think connecting with a clear platform, you're able to connect the consumer with the producer, but also provide that traceability part of it. And I think this is something that we're excited about it ourselves. That's why when I got to know about ZenGate, I got excited that this might be the ultimate product for us.
And the other thing as well, Dr. Lagat, that you get from traceability, right? Because right now, there's such a big focus on, yes, sure, the value comes in, but really making it easy that the buyer can access it, right? The logistics is sorted, the payments pieces are sorted, the compliance piece is sorted. And that's what Alibaba does for many, finished products or manufactured products. And our focus, we were inspired by the work Alibaba does, their business model, the way Amazon works. And that's a simplification process that is important that we've talked about. But the flip side is actually like how the smallholders benefit as well, not just from the money that they earn and the value share of that value chain they earn. But one of the things that I think from an economics point of view that really got me excited was around price discovery, right? And the opportunity to see that part of the market thrive, because in many markets, smallholder producers don't really know what the fair market value of their commodities are. And before, Kenya's probably very different now, but maybe 10 or 20 years ago, before, mobile technology became a thing, it was very unclear in terms of like what prices were. Should I, for the more, less perishable goods that maybe you can store, like, should I sell it now to the broker, or do I wait a month, or do I wait 2 months, put it in storage? A lot of infrastructure in many parts of the world didn't really have that in an efficient way. So many people typically would sell straight away, not knowing what price they could fetch at a later date. And when you have a market and a system, right, traceability allows you to have that system where you have almost this real-time view, and not just for the market, but the regulators also know. So it's beneficial for the people you work with, in real time what the yield sort of expectations look like, in real time what the sort of demand supply is starting to look like at a given point of time. And that data can get shared with the farmers, right? And they can make the decision of, I want to sell today, or maybe I wait, or maybe I don't. Maybe I need to change my crop to focus on a different crop for this season. And it's that market information, that's the data that I think is really underappreciated by many people, because a lot of the conversation is had with buyers, right? Because you have to get a lot of buy-in from the buying, the wholesalers, the people that are looking to do the sourcing, right, from in the first place. But I actually think one of the most underrated things that never really gets talked about is the ability for the farmers to actually be the ones to make more of their own decision making. And there's sort of a power balancing that emerges from all of this. And when you get that bit right, that's when you can start layering all of the other products around it, right? So the way I see the future of all of this playing out is when the farmer, when the cooperative has access to this data, they can make better decisions. When the farmer and the cooperative tracks this data, they now have a record of all of the transactions and the yield, the payments that have taken place in the domestic and the export markets. When they have that data, they can access financial products, whether that's insurance or borrowing of funds to grow their businesses, to manage risk against their businesses. And like that's the blooming period that I really look forward to, because that's when you then connect your banks, your insurers, the regulators, so that you have a much clearer view around how you can support the right people, the right businesses, but more importantly, the right communities. And that's the benefit of actually starting these things. And the problem with traceability for so long is it's been so expensive. No one's really figured out how to do it in a cost-effective way, but it's one of those necessary things that just has to be done, because without it being done, you don't get all of these other things I just talked about, right? And that's the bit that people get so fixated on and miss, right? Because it's you have to put the money in and the time and the energy to invest into actually making this system work, so that everyone else benefits in the future. Because it's everything else that comes in, in 2 years' time or 5 years' time, that is the thing that actually makes the tangible impact that we talk about wanting to have. So anyway, Nick, I'll hand back over to you, or Dr. Lagat, if you have something to say in response to that. I'd love to hear directly from you as well.
I was just going to say real quick that, I look forward to the day that the traceability is just the sugar that comes with your tea, right? That it's
yes.
Right? So we know that the cost of the sugar and the milk is being borne by the purchase of the tea at the, it's not giving it away for free. But then again, just as Sam is talking about all these other possibilities that come once the traceability is available, that really the cost of the traceability will be borne by these other extremely high value services like insurance and lending and things like this. But yeah, I was just wondering, of course, please comment on this, but I was also hoping you could give us a quick comment on what you think what you think the role of governments or regulatory bodies might have in encouraging or promoting the adoption of traceability and these kind of technologies within agriculture.
Thank you so much, Sam and Nicholas. Clearly, it is exciting that the technology that is here with us, really, we have to look at it from the perspective of course, it will be displacing some actors in the market because they become irrelevant. Because if you're able to connect this consumer and the producer, it means some of these people who are handling logistics will only be those who are relevant to handle only the logistics, not to do the trading, where they have to blind probably the consumer from the producer and probably take advantage of the fair market value of the product. But I believe it will break those barriers and will unlock another value that will be in line with the global goals in terms of inclusion. You know, the inclusion bit of it is when there's no transparency in the market place, where the producers do not know what the consumers want or the value the consumers attach to the product, or when the consumers also do not get to know whether the value they are paying for translates also to the key welfare for the consumers. So really, the power struggles might be there. The challenge of probably breaking, and maybe even sometimes you might have those regulatory hindrances, which may be there. But for me, I believe that they will not last for a very long time. So, and I think for governments, the best thing, of course, is in intergovernmental relations that we are building, foreign relations that exist. But even beyond that, the pressure now, the increasing pressure to really participate in the global value chains by countries, and the overall value of volumes that you're able to export might make them to now overlook some of the regulatory hindrances, which may impede the traceability systems that probably we want to introduce. But the key word here for me is disruption. If it's disruptive enough, most governments are willing to accept that, as long as the value that is translated is going to be a fair, it's going to be distributed fairly among the actors.
You know, I'm struck by that, because it's the second time you brought it up, especially in the discussion of barriers. And I was really struck by your words are so powerful. The idea that the disruption is inevitable, and that
yes,
though there may be some barriers, we shouldn't be intimidated by them. We just need to keep innovating and pushing forward. I mean, I was hoping maybe at this point, if there were any questions from the audience, if maybe we might be able to move on to something like that. But Victor, anything going on your end? Do you see anything that might be good for us to try to cover?
Well, I think while we wait for that as well, Dr. Lagat, I'm just curious, like, what advice do you have for the agri-economists, the agri-tech entrepreneurs, the different startups as well in Kenya, or maybe, companies looking to enter like ourselves, in terms of, collaboration opportunities or ways to have the impact? What sort of advice do you have based on everything you've seen through your consulting work, through the economics research you've done, but probably more importantly, the role that you're currently playing, leading your county in the role that you have right now?
Thank you. I am part of the team that we, at the national level, we're implementing what we call 1 million farmer platform, which is supported by World Bank. If you can Google and find, you can check. We've been able to register all the farmers. Not all of them, but at least to a greater percentage, we have actually registered about 6.4 million farmers who are in active farming. We are piloting a number of startup digital products among the farmers, and some are really at different stages of growth. And it's quite amazing because we are able to see how farmers are even adapting to some of these technological innovative products that are disrupting the way they think, the way they do things. Personally, I'm a passionate person on these technology issues. In fact, there's one product I'm working on what I call FarmGate ERP. And what we're trying to do is also, as you're saying, you need to really give the independence of decision making to the farmer. And the best way to do that is he must be able to read his figures, his numbers every day, every evening, every morning. They must be able to track their progress, their performance, if there is any decrease even in milk production. Why am I not performing like the other farmer here and all that? So I think Kenya is one of the countries in, if not in if not in all of Africa, is in East Africa that we platforms for startups, and a lot of startups in Nairobi and even in our local cities, like even in my city, we have a lot because we have a bunch of savvy young people who are willing to take risk of trying and innovating and even supportive services. So and they're quite affordable to any startup company to even recruit some of these young people to work with. Very enthusiastic and very creative. For me, it's an area that any startup company should think of growing. If you want to really grow into the global stage, you need to be in Kenya. So you need to really not just visiting, but you need to even be here for some time. I know of a lot of venture capitalists that are coming here to support and even to scout for the same startups. We now have what we call Silicon Savannah. That is one of the centers that the government has developed to just support startups. And there are a lot of incentives now by the government on startups, even on tax incentives and rebates, which is very attractive for anybody who wants to grow in this sector. But the biggest advantage you have here is really a community that is willing to try on anything new. They are very curious. So if you want to really adapt, as all of you know about M-Pesa, I don't know if you've read so much about M-Pesa. You know about it, Nicholas? You've heard about M-Pesa? You know M-Pesa?
I don't think Pesa. No, I mean, you know, I don't know about this. I'm sorry.
It is M for mobile. Pesa is money.
Oh yes, I do know about that. The mobile money, is that right? Through SMS?
Yes, of course.
Yes,
no,
yes.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about, Dr. Lagat. That's been a game changer. I've been following that for a while.
Yes. And you see, when it was introduced here, you know, Kenya and the UK policies are more or less the same because of the we are a British colony. So
yeah,
when M-Pesa was introduced here, most of the banks, especially the British banks like the Barclays and all that, Standard, they resisted that. It's how will you know, it's like people resisting now the blockchain and the rest. And there was a lot of resistance. But I can tell you, I cannot survive without M-Pesa. Without M-Pesa, I can't recall the last time I handled the cash. I don't handle the cash. I get paid through M-Pesa. I pay everything, literally everything through M-Pesa. And all the banks now are also using M-Pesa. They cannot do without M-Pesa. All of us no longer go to the bank. I go to the bank only once in a year or so. I don't visit the bank anymore because I can, when I receive my salary, it comes, I'm able to carry it on my phone. I can withdraw into my M-Pesa. I can pay my bills. So really it has been revolutionary, but still it has impacted onto other aspects of the tech sector, which now are seeing a lot of technologies among many of the population, and I think it's spreading across. So I think largely we owe this to we probably as a country we are quite receptive to any innovative products.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just like what we've noticed there, I'd say varying, right, is around the mindset of just the ruthless mindset of being open to testing new things. And it's great that there's an incubation environment, a sandpit environment where you have producers. I actually didn't even know about the 1 million smallholder or the farmer platform that you talked about, because all of a sudden you get a huge base of users you can effectively start piloting stuff with rapidly. So we're always on the search for the right markets. We're always on the search for right talent and human capital as well, development talent. So I think there's probably separate conversations to be had around this. Maybe after when you have the time, obviously in your busy schedule, Dr. Lagat. But more importantly, sorry. To the people listening as well, I hope it's sort of really highlighted the growth of the Kenyan market, but the opportunities that exist there and the support that the regulators and the startup environment, the funding environment looks like as well, based on what we heard today. So I know many community members are building projects, some sort of similar to us in the real world asset space, but also around access, whether that's around the telecommunication space or financing as well. And I urge everyone to go have a look and look at the opportunities in Kenya, because it seems very promising, that's for sure.
I'm certainly excited to spend more time. I only had a couple of days with that trip for the expo, but I was struck so much by the country, by the people, and of course by the opportunities. That's it's like you say, if you're going to be a startup, you have to come to Kenya. It's the place to be.
Yep.
Do we have any final thoughts before we say goodbye for this episode, gentlemen? It's been a great time, but our hour has flown by really quickly. And just really quick, any final thoughts?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate Sam and Nicholas for this opportunity to really be here with you. It's been exciting, and I look forward to more interaction. But make sure that ZenGates find its way here, because we need that ability and linkages for us here. I would say that you're welcome to Kenya, Sam. Make sure you make a point to visit here, and we can interact and probably see how we can collaborate more. If you need anything here, I'll be quite ready to help anyone, probably even from the audience. I am quite open to engage on anything, any area to support, because I believe that way we can together bring a greater welfare to our people. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so just to echo that as well, it's been a pleasure, Dr. Lagat, and great to finally speak to you, and I'm sure we'll meet hopefully soon as well. But yeah, thank Nico for facilitating this and bringing all of us in the same room to speak about this stuff.
Yeah, I'll just take this last opportunity to thank everyone for watching today. This is really exciting for me, and it's such a pleasure to be able to share this this fantastic relationship that just really the fates brought together. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Lagat. Thank you everyone for watching, and yeah, please spread the word about ZenGate and about all the great opportunities there are in Kenya. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.